I wanted to leave you with this as my message for what I realize is the case. Don't have to wish life were easier. Make myself better, and then it gets easier. So let me introduce you to Evan Mestman, who you've already been introduced to, but got a great background. You heard about it already. He's been an author. He's done all right. I've met him on Age 7 a while back, and we've had a couple of great meetings, and guy just pumps me up. So I don't need to read off his bio. I think you can all see that. And, you're going to get the one choice at a time discussion here. So let's get it started, and I'll stop sharing. Evan, you go ahead and take over and rock and roll with us.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I really appreciate you giving me this, Coach, giving me this time and for you to welcome me in here. Let me see if I can get there we go. And I am going to be talking to you today about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's called The Habits of a Happy and Productive Brain. Can everybody see my slides?
You're good.
Great. Okay, so I guess part of the question really is that people don't realize how every day they can actually spend so much time beating themselves up and not being effective at what they do. And as a business owner, working in corporate America for 20 years, and then I was a business owner initially for about 15 years before I went into corporate America, time management is something you just never have enough time, right? But it's an interesting concept. We all have the same amount, right? There's 24 hours in the day. What is it? 186 hours in a week. But how can you be not busy, but productive? And what I'm going to do is kind of teach you some hacks about how to make your brain give you what you need in order to be more productive. Because isn't it better to work? It's like, what do they say? You get more from honey than you do from vinegar. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do with your brain. Okay, so people choose to suffer because they don't understand how that brain works. So I'm going to help you understand that it's about the expectations that you set. Like Coach S was talking about his expectations of me. But what if you were with a coach whose expectations, or let's say a teacher in school, and his expectation is that everyone in his class gets 100 on every test? Or what if you had a coach who wanted every team to win an Olympic gold medal for his Olympic team? It's going to lead to a lot of disappointment, don't you think? It's also going to lead to a lot of unhappiness. Coach has talked about happiness. I'm going to talk to you about what happiness means because it's important. It's how we are designed because we're animals first. What if you had a coach or a teacher that said, you know what, instead of wanting that 100 on every test or winning that Olympic gold medal, what if that coach was able to teach you some things that said, you know what, I'm going to teach you skills that even the Olympic medalists use to manage the ups and downs of their brain using neurochemicals. Then you're no longer disappointing. You're one step closer to where you want to be. You're no longer stuck. All you have to do is focus on practicing to get better at this. And then you start to feel a little hopeful that it's not about hitting 100. It's about just practicing these habits. So let's talk. First, I want some interaction here. What's the most difficult thing that's happened to you in your life? Can you guys share with that in the chat? I want you to think about when you've needed to be stronger than you've ever needed to be. And actually, I can't see the chat. Oh. So can you share what people are writing? You don't have to say names, just what they're writing.
Divorce, death.
Okay, those are the big ones.
Death
right?
of parent.
Yep.
Loss of pregnancy.
Wow. I mean, thank you guys for sharing. These are personal things, but they are gut wrenching. And those things a lot of times will determine really how we handle life going forward. Sometimes those things are very traumatic and they impact us for the rest of our life. Now, what I want you to do is let's flip. And I want you to think about, when's the last time you felt an overwhelming sense of joy? I call it overwhelming mojo, moments of joy. Can you share that with me in the chat? You're going to have to share, Coach.
Yeah, nobody's got anything in. I think we're all thinking, when was I happy?
This is when you light up all those circuits in your brain that it's not just joy. I mean, it's just happiness. It's the joy. Like maybe when a child was born, when you got married, when you got that dream job, when you hit a certain goal.
This week, feeling happy and grateful for my daughter and husband.
There you go.
Legally and formally marrying to my wife. Helping a local child. Son's baseball championship. Oh yeah, I know that one. Children being born.
Great. I love it. And a lot of these
with my husband. There we go.
Yeah. A lot of these are things that are at different levels of joy, but the depth of your joy seems to be more dependent on what it's tied to, what the contribution is. So it's with a child, or it was with giving. I heard some people talk about giving and participating that way. Happiness is more transactional. We always say we want to be happy, but it's the pursuit of happiness that really brings the joy, because it needs to be connected to a purpose. Okay. And leadership is about accomplishing what matters most. And in business, when you connect to your why, then you'll connect to your mojo. Okay. The life you lead is measured by joy. It's measured by your joy in what you accomplish and the meaningful things that happen in your life. Okay. It's the things that you say when you do them. A year from now, is this going to matter? So that's not going to be spending more time on your social media, but it might be that time, like you guys talked about, the time that you spent helping a baseball team, or when I did volunteering and work with some homeless vets. For you, some other people mentioned their husbands and their children when their children was born. So happiness, though, is elusive. And it's part of understanding why is it so elusive? It's because it's the way our brains are designed. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about why it's so important to understand how your brain works. Because if you know that, you're going to have more moments of happiness, and hopefully connecting it to your purpose, more moments of joy. Think about the last time you went to a restaurant and you had this incredible meal. You ever gone back to that same restaurant and it just never was, even though it was good, it just wasn't as good as the first time? You know that Sade song, it's never as good as the first time. It's actually true. Part of what I want to do is I want you to think about how your actions are controllable, because you have three brains. And the three brains look like this. You have the reptilian brain, which is the things that fight or flight response. You have the limbic system, which is more of your emotional feeling brain. And then you have the neocortex, which is that higher level brain. What's really important to understand here is that fight or flight is a very narrow focus. When you woke up 1,000 or 10,000 years ago as a caveman, you didn't go outside and go, wow, what a beautiful day. You went out and looked for the saber-toothed tiger or the other tribe that might be attacking, or you went outside because you were hungry or thirsty. Our brains are designed for survival. And that's what's truly important, that we make decisions based on what's going to keep us alive, what's going to allow us to procreate, and what's going to actually get us safe. And that's why, unfortunately, we like to stay in our comfort zones. And I'm going to teach you how we can keep out of our comfort zones, because that's really where you learn and that's where you grow. The higher level brain, 20% of your decisions are made with that higher level brain. But 80% of our decisions, which is why if we're in sales, which we're all in sales, we need to make sure we're connecting to people on the emotional level, because people, we don't want to have them buy logically. We want them to buy emotionally. Well, it's the same thing with you making decisions. I want you to learn how to create a pathway that's happy versus stressed. How do we do it? Well, understand the success circuit. Failure is part of success. When you accept that, it makes it a lot easier to fall. I don't like the word fail, because fail means you're giving up. But people understand that in business or in life, when we try something, think about when your child first learned how to walk, constantly falling down. You would pick them up, encourage them, they keep walking. They probably fell 100 times a day initially. That's the process, though, of learning and constantly practicing to make progress. Failure is part of that success circuit, okay? And choice is a big part of it. And it's based on a lot of internal factors rather than external factors. So let's talk about those factors. Now, learning to shape your circuits to make you feel good, neurochemicals and the pathways, the one thing I'll tell you, it's complicated. Okay, that picture will tell you it's worth 1,000 words, but don't worry about the picture on the left. What I want you to understand is, I want you to think of the word dose, D-O-S-E. Your happy neurochemicals are dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And really quickly, dopamine is what gets you up and motivates you to seek more. For instance, if you were a caveman and you needed or wanted, and you were hungry, and you found food, let's say you found a herd of deer, that would give you a dopamine dose. No, hey, I found the deer. Now you kill the deer, and that would give you a dopamine dose. Likewise, we also get a dopamine dose when we're find water. And it's what we call the neurochemical of motivation. Okay, serotonin motivates us to get the attention in order for us to get some respect or to get a mate. So it's kind of like it increases our opportunities. And there's always a social standing. You ever hear of the alpha male? We are social animals, and serotonin keeps us in our status. And it's important. It's an important component. None of us live alone. We shouldn't be living alone. Then oxytocin. What's oxytocin? It's usually called the love potion or the love neurochemical. It builds social alliances. That's when a mother gives birth to a child. There's a tremendous amount of oxytocin produced. So the mother attaches to the child. Likewise, a child attaches to the mother with touch. So when you hold your significant other's hand, that will release oxytocin. But it builds trust. I would call that the neurochemical of trust. And then endorphins give us the ability to escape when we're getting attacked. Let's say you get bitten on the leg. Endorphins are produced so you have no pain or very little pain. Or if you break your leg, you can keep running or moving, and then eventually it doesn't last. Okay, so those are all of the happy chemicals. Anyone ever hear of cortisol? Cortisol is the stress hormone. Cortisol comes from the adrenal glands, and it surges because of the fight or flight response, that that basic lizard brain when you see a threat. Now, the problem is in society today, we don't see real tigers or lions. We get paper tigers. We get emails. We get dings on our phone saying, oh, new job, but that new job then means, oh my gosh, I got all these things that I have to do, and I might, or it's an opportunity and I might lose it. So there's a lot of stress involved. And what happens is every day, day in, day out, we're getting cortisol dripping and surging when it really should be where we get, I mean, how often when we were cavemen, were we at risk? We weren't at risk a lot, but we were at risk sometime. But we're constantly getting the drip. And what ends up happening with this drip of cortisol is the stress becomes anxiety. Constant drip of cortisol, it creates the anxiety. So let's get to what you actually can do. The rules of what I call of the habits of a happy brain. I want you to make sure you're going to, and I'm going to give you some actionable things that you can do, but I want you to think about that you're going to choose behaviors based on what your best options are. So you don't want to do something that you should do or something that's not achievable. You also want to believe that your actions have consequences, positive ones and negative ones. So sometimes you have to delay gratification, short-term versus long-term. I want you to also, when you're doing things, it's about honoring decisions for 45 days because it takes time to create these happy chemicals. When you're doing these things, this is where you're producing those happy chemicals instead of the cortisol. And then lastly, understand your brain so that if you are in a situation where you're feeling stress, even anxiety, it's time to start practicing some of the habits I'm going to share with you now. Now, before I move forward, I'm going to pause here and ask, are there any questions? Okay.
Sounds like we all got a dose.
So let's try some habits of a happy, productive brain. The first one is you need to double your pleasure. Now, that is a really simple tool. And I gave you a handout that I sent to Coach Hess. So it has all of, you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. It has all this on the handouts. Plus I gave you a PDF of all the slides. Think about this. I want you to, right now, I want everyone to close their eyes. I want you to think of one thing that happened today that was a positive experience that gave you a dose of dopamine or cortisol or oxytocin, something positive. Close your eyes. And I want you to just imagine that hopefully you had something. And it could be the smallest thing. Maybe you saw a new flower in the garden. I'm a gardener and I love gardening. So I'll always use gardening analogies. I'll use food. And, you know, you go out there and I see something new blooming in the garden for the first time. That's going to give me a dose of dopamine. For you, you might get a new client, right? That's going to give you a dose of dopamine. I want you to feel all the feelings that you had. I want you to experience hearing it. I want you to hear it. I want you to feel how your body was, whether you're standing and sitting. That's experiencing it. Immerse yourself in it. When you do this, your brain does not know the difference between the visual and the actual happening. So you're actually doubling the dose of dopamine. And by doing this, you're reinforcing what we call neural pathways. Our brains are live wired. And what I mean by that is when you know what hardwired means, right? It's like, you know, you plug something in and that plug is hardwired. Well, I read a book once there's some neuroscientists out there that explain that the brain, 50% of the brain is live wired. It makes connections based on what the brain needs. And it's pretty fascinating that the brain can do this. So you can actually create new pathways in your brain just by doing this. So what's the second one? Give yourself permission to breathe. Breath work stops the stress response. Anybody practice yoga? Okay, yoga is a great practice because there's breath work involved. But because of your vagus nerve goes through your diaphragm so that when you start breathing slowly and intentionally, you will start to see the stress response just stop. So doing the breath work is important, of just focusing on 2 minutes a day of just slowly breathing in and out through your nose. Find a natural, normal rhythm to your breathing and focus on making it diaphragmatic, where you're breathing from your diaphragm so your belly is expanding in and out. And just focus on the breath, the inhalation and the exhalation. Feel the air coming in and notice the coolness of the air coming in your nostrils. Then you have that exchange of air. And as it comes out, notice just at the nostrils how it's warmer and it's moister. And by doing this, you're taking the attention off of your thoughts and you're putting it on what I call, this is sensory command. You're putting it on your senses. And that is really one of the kind of oxymorons about the brain is you can't think your way out of getting out of your own head. So that's where breathing comes in. That's why exercise plays a great role. Exercise can do this, going for a walk, using any of your senses. But I focus on breath because breath is the thing that connects your body, mind, and soul. Another thing that you can do, does anybody have any projects at home or at work that they've been procrastinating with, putting aside, saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. Oh, I'll do it over the holiday weekend, or I'll do it next quarter. Anybody? Maybe a project like, cleaning out the closet, painting a room, weeding the garden, planting a garden, whatever it might be. My bottom line here is take 5 minutes. 5 minutes on something that's difficult or a large task and just work on it for 5 minutes. So that might be tackling that, cleaning out the garage or the attic, but only 5 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes. It's amazing what happens when you give yourself permission to just do the 5 minutes. When you do that, though, you usually spend more time. That's the beauty of it. But part of that is I want you to do that, and it makes a difference. Now, the fourth thing is I'm big on gratitude. Gratitude is powerful because when you're fearful, of the future, you're future focused. Or anxiety, right? And stress and anxiety is always about what's happening in the future. When you're regretful, you're constantly thinking about the mistakes that you've made. You're in the past. Gratitude keeps you in the precious present. So what I want you to do is to find 3 things that you're grateful for and write them down every day. I have, if any of you want to be invited to it, I have a gratitude Facebook group where every day I post 5 things that you're grateful for. And it's amazing when you make the commitment to do this, how it changes your neural pathways. Now, you can write a note to somebody, because it's not just about saying how grateful you are, it's about expressing gratitude. So because when you feel gratitude, it's kind of like taking a present, wrapping it up, and not giving it to somebody. But when you express it, that's why doing things like a random act of kindness or writing a note to somebody, either a DM or a text or a handwritten note saying, hey, I really appreciate you. Those are the kinds of things that will make a difference. And how about fun? When's the last time you guys had fun? You guys are not a fun bunch. Come on now. When's the last time you had fun? I have a client of mine who now dances with her husband a couple of hours a week, and she's loving it. She did it to get ready for her daughter's wedding, but now she's got her next daughter's wedding. But she's lost 50 pounds. Her blood sugars came down from in the 400s to now normal. And she's loving in the relationship, the intimacy that she's had with her husband with this dancing. And they're now going into it over a year, which the dance instructor says you're really becoming it becomes part of your neural pathway. So now she can do even more complex things, but she's having fun. Instead of doing exercise that you hate, some people will say, I hate running. I love running. Well, do something you love. Maybe it's a sport, getting back to becoming that athlete you were before. Or, okay, play pickleball. Okay, if you want to play something that maybe gets you going. But the idea is to make it fun. It could be dance, it could be yoga. I don't care what it is, but 15 minutes every day will make a big difference. And it gets more endorphins going and flowing through your body. Part of that also is if you choose to do an exercise that's you push yourself, will also create endorphins. So let's say, you ever hear the runner's high? The reason why the runner's high happens is because you ran more than your body could. And you're actually releasing the endorphins to go, you survived. It's all about survival. And that's producing those happy chemicals. Anyway, my program is called the ProAttitudes, and it's Become, Be Strong, Be Grateful. That is my B3 method for coaching. And I really appreciate that you guys invited me on. What are your key takeaways? Maybe we should do a mentee on this.
Yeah. Anybody got any things they can put in chat box, key takeaways? I mean, my big one right away, I'll type in there's 5-minute rule.
I really liked the concept of be grateful. I think it's easy to forget that on a daily basis.
Yeah. And when you were saying it, I mean, the way it's kind of like, yes, you want to be grateful and truly authentic to that, but as much of the reason you're doing it is for your own development of your own neural pathways to become stronger. And, so it's kind of like a self-help rather than a giving help, because giving gives you, it goes both ways, I guess, point. So interesting. Attitudes of gratitude, 15-minute fun exercise, tackle hard tasks, breathe, remember to breathe.
You're good bunch here. Look at you guys. You good takeaways.
Excellent.
Now, the goal here is to use what I call smarter goals, which are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, trackable, enjoyable, and rewarding, to say, what if you did something this week, and I tell you to pick 1 to 3 things that if you did it with 100% commitment and 100% integrity will get you 3 steps closer to taking better care of yourself. What would those, not what they should be, but what can they be? And write them down. And as coach works on goal setting, let's include some of those goals. Okay, but now choose to be happy is not, now how do you choose to be happy? Now that you know you can create happy chemicals, what can you do specifically every day? And I think that's great to choose to be happy. Say, I can do this every day. And then you're going to be reframing it, because when you're doing it intentionally to promote happiness. And of course, if you attach it to your joy, to purpose, it'll be joyful.
All right. Well, Evan, outstanding message, and thank you so much. Let's give it up a little bit for Evan. Way to go, buddy. Good stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of what he just taught us and put it instantly into practice by taking a break. But in the process of taking the break, what we're going to do is have a little whoosh. I think all of you know about the whoosh, right?
I don't.
You don't? Oh, it's new. Okay, well, we'll give you a little coaching on it. It's a Tai Chi maneuver. Very complicated, but you'll probably master it the first